Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Today, a very, let's call it what it is, very motivational story today. And let me explain to you why. We're going to go into the mind of a beautiful young woman.
Young.
Beautiful young woman.
I like you.
And her journey, and not just journey. I know we hear that constantly on shows. We hear the journey. What's the journey? This journey is different. This is about human rights and fighting for it. And we've been doing this since the dawn of creation. We've been trying to find our place and trying to find that one individual that can spark a change. Today on the show, she's known for being a movie director, producer. I mean, the list goes on, but she's more noted for human rights, especially female human rights. She calls it the underdog. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Gloria. I'm gonna get the last name right. Yazdani.
You did wonderful.
Welcome to the show,
That's
Gloria.
me. Thank you, Andre.
Before we get started, Gloria, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are before we get into the human rights and your ties to that and filmmaking.
Okay. Well, first of all, hello. Thank you for inviting me over here. And hello to your viewers, whoever you are, wherever you are. I hope you're all doing well. Who is Gloria Yazdani? I was born in Iran, in the southern city of Shiraz. You know that wine, Shiraz, the grapes, that is so famous? That's my birth city. Wow. And the city is actually known for its beautiful roses and jasmines, and so many poets have risen from Shiraz. It truly is a beautiful city. Too bad I can't go back there. My family and I moved from Iran to Cyprus. We were in Cyprus for a year before we could move to Canada illegally. We came as visitors and we wanted to stay. There was a commotion. We got deported. My sister and I were allowed to stay because we were minors. My father had to go back some other country and apply for proper refugee status or immigration status and come back. I was raised then in Canada. I've lived in Israel for a while and also in Dubai, United Arab Emirates. But for the last 16 years, I've been back in Canada. I separated from my husband when we were living in Dubai in 2008. And I came here to Canada with my 9-year-old and my 4-year-old. And we've been here ever since. My children are beautiful, bright young men right now. So when you ask me who I am, first and foremost, I'm a mom. Sorry?
Let me go back for a minute here with your story.
Okay.
It sounds almost like a political migration for you and your family to leave conditions. You had to be young when you left there. I assume you were pretty young when you left.
We were children, my sister and I, yes.
When you wind up, you said something, and the reason why I'm focusing on this because I want the viewers and people to understand what it is like. I think here in America, especially now, we hear so much about the immigration policies and so forth, and it's always twisted to where it's always focused on the criminal side. to put a fear base instead of understanding the bigger picture here. So you wind up going to Canada at a young age, and your father, was it your father and your mother get deported back?
We were all deported, but because my sister and I were minors and we had already started school, Canada has a policy that you're not allowed to take kids out of school. Had it been in the summer, we would have all had to leave. But since we had enrolled in school already, we had a friend come, not a lawyer, a friend come and speak to the judge. And they said that they're not allowed to take us out of school. So they allowed my mother to stay because we were minors to take care of us because there was no one else to take care of us. But my father had to leave the country and apply properly and then come back.
How in the hell? First of all, I know you're young, but I'm pretty sure your parents told you the stories you got older and you start seeing little
Oh, I
things.
remember. It's not like I wasn't a baby. I was 12
Who,
years old. We saw everything. We felt everything.
like, who did you, when you came here, did when your family came to Canada, did you know anybody? You just,
Okay, we didn't know anybody as such, but we did look up the yellow pages and looked for a Baha'i community. Baha'i religion is the religion we adhere to, and that's the Baha'i community in Iran is being persecuted. So we looked up the Baha'i faith. It's like you calling up your church and saying, I'm here, I don't know where to go. Can you help me find a place to live?
okay.
So we called the Baha'i Center and they immediately sent the car for us. We had arrived in Ottawa. The car came, took us to a Baha'i family nearby in a little town near Ottawa. They had a basement apartment that no one was using. So they said, you're welcome to stay here until you find a apartment. And they actually helped us find an apartment. So we were there for maybe a week or two, and then we moved into this little one bedroom apartment. But it was okay at the beginning because it was our own and our family could be together. And that was a long time ago. Many other refugees came after us, and our home became a haven for them. Because then, when new refugees came, we would host them until they could get on their feet and find a place to go.
So my question is, two-part question. How long was it before you saw your father? And then how do you
It
actually,
was a year and a few months.
how do you become legal though? I mean, I'm
Well, we weren't legal. He applied from Cyprus, and then we became legal, and then he came here, and we stayed here. My mother, the good thing was that my mother was UK educated. She was a midwife and a nurse. At the time, Canada didn't have midwives. Now they do. At the time, you had to be a doctor to give birth. So my mother, but she wrote her exams, and because she was just such a good student from when she studied nursing, she got her license right away, and she started working. And she worked night shift. She worked night shift every day of the year just so that she could be home when we got home from school.
what were the stories that you was told by your family that caused you guys to leave your hometown?
Um, we weren't told the story. We were witnessed. We saw the story. It happened to us. Baha'is have always been persecuted in Iran. And because of the fact that we are a religious minority. So we would walk on the streets and we would get stones on our backs. Like other kids would throw stones at us. We were almost untouchable. Like if They believed, some of them, the more fanatical ones, not everyone, not every Muslim, but some of them who were quite fanatical would think that if they drank from the same cup we drank, that they would actually, something bad would happen to them. Like people wouldn't come into our house sometimes because we were untouchable.
When you come back, when you get to Canada, you you get older.
Mm-hmm.
When did you start to? When did the realization of what you guys went through? When did it start to resonate to where you said, I'm gonna make a stance here. I'm gonna fight for human rights, not
Okay.
just female rights, but just rights in general.
Okay. That with me started from the time I was about 5 years old, when we were still in Iran. Now, you may think I'm crazy. A lot of people do, and I'm okay with that. I think normal is not great. But from the time I was 5 years old, or at least I think I was 5 years old, as far back as I can remember,
Right.
whatever age that was, 5, 6, whatever. Um, we would be walking on the streets and I would see beggars on the road, like at the corners. Now, that's not something that you guys in the United States are familiar with. But in a lot of countries, there are people outside with their hands stretched, begging for money. And that's how they make their livings. Now, oftentimes, in order to gain sympathy and get more money, they bring, like, this woman comes and sits on the street corner with their kids all around her, and snuff coming down, and they're all like looking desperate, and they're begging. And I remember walking by the streets with my mother, and we were well off. We were okay. What I mean, well off, we were not rich, but we were okay. We were middle class, okay. So we would be walking by, and people would beg my mother for money. And of course, she would just walk off, and not pay any attention to it. But I couldn't not pay attention to it.
Mhm.
Um, I would go home and I would refuse to eat. I would throw a tantrum why my mother didn't help them, why we're eating when those children cannot eat. And of course, I would be scolded for, taking it out of control, and overreacting and being so sensitive, and all of that. And then I would go to bed and I would cry. And then then the news will be on, right?
Right.
And then you will hear about wars going on. Okay, so many soldiers were sent to this place, Vietnam, or that place, Israel, and Gaza, and all over the place. And I watched people talk about the war, and wherever it was, as if it was entertainment, as if it were a game between the nations. Okay, let's play a game. I throw the football at you, you catch it. But people were dying. People were actually being hurt. Soldiers wouldn't come back to their original countries. Wives would lose their husbands, mothers would lose their children. And this is me as a kid not understanding, why is this? Why the truth is getting lost? The reality of war is getting lost. But the controversy, the discussions, the TV would be on, and everyone would want to know how many Vietnamese died, how many Palestinians died, what is Israel doing now? But nobody cared about the the soldiers that were on the ground, the people who weren't drinking water, the legs that were being amputated. So I would see these things at that age and I would talk about them.
Mm.
I would actually make a raised platform somewhere in our living room and go up on it, like whether it was a bunch of pillows or a bed or a couch or whatever. And I would go on and start talking, performing soliloquies of my own in my naive way, telling people off about the reaction to poverty, to war. And at the time, I wasn't even aware of so many things. Like as a child like that, I didn't know what racism was, for example. It was non-existent because the concept didn't even, I hadn't even come across the concept, or human trafficking. I didn't know anything about human trafficking, that it even existed, or the LGBTQ issues. At the time, I only had the news and I only had the streets. On the streets, I could see beggars that looked hungry or homeless. And then on the news, it would always be about a war or a conflict somewhere. So that's all I had to go with. And I would create my own soliloquies based on that. And at first, it was entertaining, and the family would laugh, and, whether I gave them a headache or not, I don't know. But eventually, it got because they thought that I was too sensitive and I was destroying myself. So they started telling me that I'm too naive. When I grow up, I learn to deal with these things. We can't overwhelm ourselves with these things. So all the lectures and things like that. So I remember at that early age, I would go to bed and I promised myself, I said, you know what, Goli? Goli is my nickname. People call me, my friends call me Goli, Goli.
Okay.
You know, Goli, it's okay. When you grow up, you can change the world.
Wow, that's
Right now, you're a child, so they won't take you seriously.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what you say, but don't change. Don't become unfeeling. Don't become like everyone else. Just hold on to whatever you've got in your heart. And when you're old enough, then you can start changing the world. So I did grow up, but it wasn't that easy. And then I learned that you can't change the world on your own. You can only inspire people to join you in changing the world. So when you ask me when I grew up and I decided, this decision was always with me,
Mhm.
but it was in high school here in Canada when I won a public speaking contest in school and regionally. And I still didn't speak English very well, but I was able to memorize something and to give it. And then when I did that, and with very broken English, almost non-existent English, the school board got interested in me. So they called me in and they said that we see a lot of potential in you. So we're going to, first of all, enroll you into a drama course because we think you will be very good in drama. And we're going to give you extra help in English to make sure that you start speaking it as soon as you can. So that was the start of everything else. I once I tasted the, I don't know, the flavor of performing arts,
Yeah.
I couldn't go back. And I used that to express myself.
So what was your and you know what? Let me first say I know this is an emotional topic for you. Anytime you're dealing with loss, war, children, husbands, family being separated, uh, we all say I can only imagine. That's an understatement because you've seen it and it's still going on. Your first project, Your first project that you did, what was it about, and what was the message that you was trying to deliver? Because you got all of this stuff locked up inside you. Your friends are telling you you're still a child, nobody's going to really pay attention, but now you get these opportunities to now showcase. What was your first project like, and what were you trying to do with that first project?
Okay, my very first project was called An Era of Peace.
Wow, that's deep.
Sorry?
I say that's deep, deep topic.
Well, yeah, I was very young. I was in university. I mean, I was involved in other projects, but until I got to university, I was always involved in other people's projects.
Right.
You're asking about my own
Yeah,
project.
your own project.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I moved away from Ottawa to come to Toronto to go to university. And in Toronto, I formed my own dance and drama workshop. I would get a bunch of youth together every weekend and we would dance and do drama, workshop drama. And we workshopped this piece that was called An Era of Peace. And I thought at the time, I didn't know where, by that time, sorry, by that time, I had become aware of so many other atrocities going on in the world.
Mhm.
I'm now away from the street and the TV news on the war. Now I know about racism and the struggles of so many societies. I know about human trafficking. I know about child abuse. I know about female abuse. I know about the plight of the LGBTQ. So all of these other avenues are just bombarding me. So I'm thinking, okay, what do I start with? And I thought, you know what? First of all, we need peace in the world. We'll call it whatever you want, like define peace in any way you want. But to me, we just need to come together and accept our brotherhood, regardless of skin color or sex or religion or background or language or culture or anything like that. All of those are great in their own individualities,
Mhm.
but if we don't come together and create this garden of humanity,
It doesn't work.
yeah,
It doesn't work.
it doesn't work.
Right.
The garden needs to be full of flowers, of smells, different colors, different shapes. It just, that's what makes a garden beautiful. And if you look at humanity and you call it the garden of humanity, then it has to be that way as well. So with these young folks that I was working with, somebody wrote a couple of songs and I did some dance choreography because I have dance background as well. And then we took little quotations from various people who have ever spoken about peace and brotherhood. And we made a collage of these different ideas. And we intersected music and dance, and it was quite a success. So that was
When
my first.
that was your first project, how was it perceived to the public? Because like you said, like we both said, the ideal of the message is to make sure that it doesn't fall on deaf's ear. So you launched this project. How was it received
It
by
was
people?
it was received very well, but you know what, I as proud as I was of the results, I started thinking and I figured I shouldn't be that proud of the results because the people who came to see it were already of the same mindset.
That's what I was going to say. How do you get the message to the people that don't have
I
that
didn't
mindset?
I didn't, not at the time. I didn't know how.
Okay.
I wasn't big enough.
Okay.
I couldn't put the money together that would take it to
Next
places
level. Yeah.
or areas or demographics that needed it. So, but people, we got a full house, but those people were mostly, unless they brought a guest with them, were mostly the people of the same mindset. They were university kids who were, pro peace and anti-conflict and this and that. It took some times for me to develop and take my craft, if you want to call it, to bigger demographics. But by the time I did that, I decided to focus on women.
Okay. Why
Why?
why why women?
Good question. Why women? Because if not more, 50% of the world's population are women. Right there in that, right?
Okay.
Okay. So um, everybody else can be a minority that is persecuted or that is harmed or that is prejudiced against. But women are not minority. Women are half of our population. Your mother was a woman. Your daughter is a woman. Your wife was a woman. I mean, we don't exist without a woman. Woman is the one who rears the child. And for 9 months, it's only the woman who has direct access to that child, to that fetus. The father could be very loving, could be very caring, could be putting his hand on your tummy the whole 9 months, but it's
Right.
not the same
Not the same.
as the child, as the fetus eating from you,
Hmm.
drinking from you, and be privy to your every emotion. So if we empower women, if we educate women, girls and women, girls, like from the moment they are born, then society will change gradually anyway.
Let me ask you a question. You
But
mentioned educating the young girls to become women. What do you mean when you say what do they need to be educated on? What are the missing elements that the school of education isn't providing them for real ventures that you've encountered or that you've heard about and you've seen?
do we have time for all of
You got time? Go ahead.
that? No. Educating girls, it's to show them, to teach them. Okay, education is not just academics.
Correct.
Okay, I'm pro academia. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that my children are university educated. But that alone, academia alone, is not enough. That's not a complete education.
Hmm.
Education has to be scientific and spiritual at the same time. And by spiritual, I don't mean religion. I don't want to bring religion into it.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter what you believe in. Spirituality to me is understanding that there is something other than our physical bodies,
Hmm.
that we have a soul, that we have a heart, that we have emotions, things that you cannot see or touch, but they exist. Now, when girls are at school from an early age and they grow up together with boys of the same age,
Hmm.
well, boys are going to be physically more powerful. I mean, there's no question about that. As a feminist, I wouldn't even argue that. Men, boys are physically bigger some of the time, most of the time. And usually, there's always an exception, but unusually more powerful physically. Now, there is, because of that biology, there is a tendency for boys to feel superior to girls because they can push a girl and the girl would fall off. But if I push you, you probably won't fall off.
Hmm.
So girls need to understand that strength is more than physical strength.
Okay.
That strength is emotional, it's intellectual, it's psychological, and it's also believing in your own capacities. Our capacities as human beings, regardless of who we are or what gender we are or what background we are limitless. But we only tap into a very small portion of our own capacities. The reason some people go beyond measure in achievement is because they tap into more potential than the rest of us.
Right.
So if we teach women that their potential is exactly the same as a boy's potential, then they can develop other strengths. They can understand that they should never be bullied, that they can respond to being bullied. They should grow up to understand that when they have children, to treat the boy and the girl the same way and not to differentiate between them. I know the Western society is much more advanced than that, but in Eastern societies where I come from, um, boys and girls are brought up literally being told that the boy matters more. Even in the way that dinner is served, for example, when they're cutting the meat, they put a bigger portion of the meat to the boy. They revere the boy. If they have so much money to send kids to university, they concentrate on sending the boy to university. And if they have leftover, they send their girl. And sometimes they don't even think she needs education. She can just get married. She doesn't need to go to university. Now, I believe, now it happened that I had two boys, but if I had girls, if I had a girl and a boy, and if I could afford to send only one to university, I would prioritize my daughter. I would send her to university
Why?
because she will be a mother.
So she
And
carries on the generations, what you're saying.
and she carries on the generation as an educated mother is an empowered mother. No, that doesn't mean that when I say educated mother, she has to go to work and not care about her child, or that staying home is wrong. No, I don't believe in any of that. Families need to have to work out what works best for them. But you don't, in my opinion, you don't necessarily get an education to make money. You get an education to become educated, to become well informed, so that you don't allow society to go the wrong direction. I'm sorry, I talk too much.
No, look, we provide quality, educated information to the viewers, not just that beast mindset story, because you already have that, but you're educating the people that the individuals or the viewers that need to be educated. I don't know what it's like to come from a country that I can be persecuted for religious purposes or because of male and female genders, and I don't know that. But you've witnessed it and you're trying to make a difference with bringing understanding and knowledge to it based on your experience, not only through telling your story but also the fact that you write movies and you produce movies. But let me go back a minute. But you're still dealing with a culture that, in my opinion, in my opinion, has minimized the feminine side of masculinity. And I think until you're able to bridge the gap between Western beliefs, current beliefs, universal beliefs, you're always going to have this stigmata between male and female and who should be treated a certain way instead of being treated as a whole, male and female, or basic humanity. What's your take on that?
Okay, so I believe, imagine a bird, a powerful bird, an eagle. Okay, the eagle flies, right? It has two wings. And for the eagle to fly high, he or she or it needs both wings,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now take humanity and say, let's say humanity is that eagle. Women are one winged and men are the other wing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for humanity to fly to the summit, humanity needs both wings equally strong. If one wing is not as strong, then humanity is going to fly like this.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're both equally strong and they complement each other in their strengths, then humanity will fly up straight. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, and it's but that's the problem. That's the problem. How do we correct that problem? Because
Well,
you're dealing with different, and we're seeing this globally. We're seeing
oh
mass
yes.
exodus of people, and this is so funny. And we shared this off of camera. I think this is I love America, the land of
You
opportunity.
mean when you say America, you mean the United
United
States,
States, yeah,
right? Okay,
love the United States. It's you can become anything you want here. Well,
absolutely.
with work. However, however, you tapped on the Eagles having the right and the left side. How do you bridge that gap? Because you're dealing with so much cultural differences, and still people that come from different countries still bring those cultural beliefs, even though they don't want to, even though they even in their own mindset now, because we talked about this, even in their own mindset, even if they left the persecution of their environment, the the DNA of that mindset is still there.
Okay, first let me start by saying that I absolutely agree with you. Like just the other day, I was ashamed of being an Iranian. I was totally ashamed because I witnessed the situation within an Iranian group here in Canada that have brought those fanatical, that horrible mindset, and they're trying to dictate it to everyone else here.
Right,
That I came home and I said, anyway, so that I agree with, and that's happening everywhere.
right,
But ours, the way I look at it, okay, I like to look at big pictures always. I'm not the detailed kind of a person. For me, big picture matters. Now, I believe we've come a long way in every aspect of prejudice, persecution, of mindset, of sociology aspects of the world, and all of that. We're way ahead compared to previous generations and previous centuries.
mm-hmm.
But why do we still have so much problem, including what you said, in the 21st century after all these technological innovations? Because I believe, in my opinion, I could be right, I could be wrong, and I'm sure there will be people who will argue against me. But I believe that because we forget the foundation of everything, and I go back to what I started from, humanity.
Right,
The globe is no longer, in my opinion, consist of countries like Canada and Iran and Ethiopia and Jamaica and United States. The world is one country. If we looked at the world as one country and humankind as its citizens, then none of these issues will prevail. And the education that we were talking about before will start from grassroots
right.
everywhere.
Yeah, but
It's a
people are
it's a fundamental issue
it's
that needs
fundamental,
to be
but the
addressed.
fundamental part is we still got to realize. This is what I tell people, because that's when we first started the podcast a couple years ago. It came right after the pandemic, and I labeled this word humanization.
Sorry, what was that?
Humanization. I call it
Okay.
humanization. I said, I'm tired of hearing people talk about, talk about the different races. Let's talk about humanization. How do we become one nation, period? And my theory behind this is the status quo. There are forces and individuals in power that like to see the chaos. It's no there's no conflict keeps the status quo where it is.
because everything has become political and polarized. Look
Right.
at your country.
Right.
How polarized the United States of America, the superpower of the world, is. It's shameful. But why? Because people love power, people love money. It's the most seductive thing in the world. So and more and more and more are are seduced by power and by money. And that's where, and why? Because spirituality is lacking. So the politics everywhere, and especially in the United States, has become only political.
Hmm.
There is no spirituality with it. There's no soul to it. There's no heart to it. There's no emotion to it.
Now, let me ask you a question before we wrap up. And once again, let me say thank you for taking time to even come on and share your story. I like I said, I can feel it that is heart wrenching, that it still affects you because I can see you really want to make a difference. And I tell people, even if you touched one person, which you already know this,
Yeah.
you done your job. But doing your job, filmmaking, doing your job, trying to make a difference, doing your job, raising your family, doing your job, bringing awareness, doing your job has also come with the fear factor of your own life
Yeah,
being in jeopardy to where you had to take
absolutely.
your kids. How do you
Absolutely.
deal with that every day, trying to touch the millions with what you're trying to say? One nation under a groove, humanization being polarized with jeopardizing your life.
Well, it depends on how important uh, your own life is within the context of the bigger human family.
Mm.
To me, it's okay. Let's take my family of three, my two boys and myself. I love them more than anything in the world. I would never, ever want anything to happen to them. If I could take all of that happening to me, I would take it. And I'm sure you'd do the same about your daughters.
Correct.
Okay. Now, if we looked at the whole world as a bigger sample of our family, then if I die for and the rest of the world gets benefit from it,
Mission
why not?
accomplished.
They're my
Yeah.
family, right?
Yeah.
I either believe what I say or I should shut up. You need to put your money where your mouth is. If you care about humanity and if you consider everyone as your brother or sister or father or mother, then you would do anything for them,
Now,
not just for my two boys that I gave birth to. Like and my boys, let me tell you, they used to make so much fun of me. They used to think I was stupid, even like, how kids are brutally honest
yeah.
and they have no filter and they tell you, oh, you're so stupid. But it is what it is. And I find joy in that. And nothing has happened to me yet. So
I'm pretty sure it won't. Now you come before we wrap up. You're coming out. You're a film producer and you're telling your stories now through motion pictures. And I don't want to get into it, but tell me a little bit about the two pictures. One is called um,
Crimson Sands,
Crimson Sand, and the other one is
Flames of Fury. Flames of Fury is actually about human trafficking.
Right.
and it's doing its rounds in the festivals. Crimson Sands did its round in the festivals. It got distribution. It was out, but then Flames of Fury has not been distributed yet. Right now, I'm actually share a vocation with you. I'm doing my own podcast, and it's called Panacea 9 podcast by Gloria Y. Maybe you would like to come to my podcast one
I
day,
sure would.
answer my questions.
How can so what made you decide to do these two movies? Let's talk about these two movies real quick so the viewers can get a little bit more insight. Like what was the purpose for the Crimson and what was the purpose for the other movie?
Well, the purpose for everything that I do is being awareness. Remember, you asked me, we were talking about my first gig, and I told you that it was the same people of the same mindset that came to see it. And you said, well, what did you do to go to other, demographics?
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. I'm trying, because if
Pivoting.
somebody finds it on Toby, which people have,
Yeah.
and they watch it, well, they find out, they find a little bit, they learn a little bit about some of the underdogs in the world.
What do you like about filmmaking? What do you like better, filmmaking, writing, or producing?
Okay, writing comes very easy to me. Like, I can write in no time. It just fills my head, and I can just blurt it out. Do I enjoy it? I enjoy poetry, writing poetry a lot more than film or novels. And I do write a lot of poetry, which I share on my Facebook page. Um, I love the actual creation of it.
Okay.
It's once the film is filmed, editing, I hate.
Join the club.
Like, why do I have to sit through that? It's not as exciting as while we were making it, and we became one huge family,
Yeah.
and we cried on the day we wrapped, and it's just such a good feeling. And then once it's over and it's all in pieces, and you start cutting and throwing away, and then you see your heart go with it, the stuff that you cut, but you have to cut. So I don't enjoy the editing process. I don't enjoy the post production. I do enjoy the festivals a lot, and I most importantly enjoy the discussions after a screening.
Yeah.
It's usually in festivals, you just get up and people ask you questions, and you get to tell the backstory,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Are you the first generation of movie creator, film creator in your family?
Uh, yeah, I don't think there's any other filmmakers in the close family range, maybe distant cousins. They might. Oh, no, actually, my first cousin who lives in the UK is a TV producer. She's worked with BBC, UK1, she's worked with HBO. Yeah. I'm actually interviewing her on my podcast next.
I'm asking one
She
more.
was born in England, though. Like, she has seen nothing of Iran, and her father is English born. So she's mixed.
How has, let me rephrase this. How has your message impacted Iran with what you're doing?
My message alone, one one hand does not have that much noise, but if you get a whole group of people clapping, you get a crescendo of sound, right? So my voice alone hasn't had that much impact, but the good thing is that now my voice is not alone.
Right.
There's so many other people, so many other men, so many other women, so many other people who are saying the same thing, raising their voices in harmony, and it is having an effect. Just now, for example, covering your hair in Iran has eased a little bit.
Okay.
You know, they still give people a hard time on the streets if they see women's hair, but before they would take them and give them like 70 slashes or something like that.
Are you afraid to ever go back? I know that's your
I'm not.
home.
I would love to go back. And I wish they would grab me and take me to prison so that I can raise my voice even higher, because you know when you're in prison everybody listens to you.
You better make sure they got cable and Wi-Fi.
Oh, in Iranian prisons, sure, yeah. No, I won't be a Nelson Mandela, that's for sure, but I wish I were. But my children won't let me. They won't. They say that I will break their heart if I go.
How can the viewers reach out to you to support your cause, to know more information about your movies and just everything that you're doing?
Well, my name is Gloria Yazdani. If you put it on your screen, they can find me on Instagram. They can find me on Facebook. My YouTube channel, where I show my podcasts, is Panacea 9 Podcast by Gloria Y.
Now, how did you
And
come up?
panacea meaning, you know, the remedy for all, the elixir, the the medicine that heals every wound. And by and I don't mean physically, I mean the wounds in your heart and in your soul.
Gloria, thank you so much for taking time out to come
Thank
and
you,
share
Andre.
such
It
a
was a
beautiful
pleasure
story.
speaking with
Ladies
you.
and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.
Bye, everyone.